A to Z Mysteries, Book Number 11, The Kidnapped King, by Ron Roy. Chapter 3. Dink, Josh, and Ruth Rose stared at Sammy. What do you mean, who's gonna dress you? Dink asked. In my country, my servants dress me and undress me, Sammy said. Yeah, right, Josh said, grinning. And my servants do my homework for me. Do you really have servants? Ruth Rose asked Sammy. Sammy nodded. I have 5 servants of my own. My father has 20. 20 servants, Josh yelled. Are you guys rich? Sammy sat on Dink's bed. We are very rich, he said. My father is... Sammy didn't finish what he was going to say. Instead, he burst into tears. Great, Josh, you made him cry, Dink said. I did not. I just asked him if he was rich. Ruth Rose sat next to Sammy. Why are you crying? She asked. Sammy didn't answer. Big tears rolled down his cheeks. Dink tossed the sweat clothes onto the bed. Then he ran into his bathroom and came out with a wad of tissues. Here, he said. Sammy took the tissues and wiped his eyes. Do you miss your mom and dad? Ruth Rose asked Sammy. Is that why you're crying? Sammy took a deep breath and wiped at his tears. I don't know where my parents are, he said. They were kidnapped last week. Kidnapped, the 3 other kids yelled. Sammy nodded. My father's enemies snuck into the palace and took him and my mother. Palace? Josh said. You live in a palace? What are you, a prince or something? Sammy nodded. Yes, my father is the king of Kostcha. I am Prince Samir bin Oz. I will be king someday. Sammy started crying again. No one said anything. Even Loretta stopped running around in her cage. Dink stared at Sammy. You're a prince? He finally asked. Does my mom know all this, Sammy? I mean, about your folks being kidnapped and everything? The boy shook his head. Only my tutor knows, he said. My parents were kidnapped at night. I was sleeping. The next day I was snuck out of the palace and sent here so I would be safe. Safe from what? Ruth Rose asked. Sammy looked at her. His eyes were red and his nose dripped. From the kidnappers, he said. Just then, Pal started barking from the front porch. They're here, Sammy cried. He jumped off the bed and ran into the bathroom. Dink looked out the window. Pal was barking at a car. It was a taxi. Dink watched it turn the corner and disappear. Come on out, Sammy, Dink said. It was just your tutor leaving. Sammy stepped out of the bathroom. His eyes looked scared. I am sorry, he whispered. No problem, Dink said. Why don't we go down and play? He pointed to the sweat clothes on the bed. Do you really need help getting dressed? Sammy took a deep breath and grinned. No, I am in America now. I will learn to dress myself. While Sammy changed, the other kids went outside and tossed the Nerf ball in Dink's backyard. It must be so cool to be a prince, Josh said. Just imagine ordering all those servants around. Dink bopped him with the Nerf ball. Josh, Sammy doesn't care about all that stuff, he said. He misses his parents. I know, Josh said. But still, just think. He could get ice cream in the middle of the night by snapping his fingers. Sammy came out dressed in Dink's wet clothes. Pal, tied to a tree, tried to lick Sammy's foot as he walked by. Sammy jumped out of reach. Is he trying to bite me? He asked. Josh laughed. No, he's just saying hi, he said. Pal wouldn't hurt a flea. Go ahead, pet him. Sammy stepped closer and gave Pal a pat on his head. Then he sneezed. I like him, Sammy said, but I am still allergic. The kids taught Sammy the rules of touch football. They played until Dink's mother called them in to eat. Promising to come over the next morning, Josh untied Pal and headed for home. Bye, Sammy, Ruth Rose said. She cut through the hedge to her house next door. Your friends are nice, Sammy said. Do you play together every day? Sure, Dink said. Don't you play with your friends in that place you come from? Sammy shook his head. I have no friends. I stay in the palace and study with my tutors. No friends? Dink stared at Sammy. He couldn't imagine not having Josh and Ruth Rose to hang out with. We better go wash up, Dink said, looking at his dirty hands. I hope you like burgers and fries. Burgers and fries? Sammy said. What is burgers and fries? Dink grinned. Hamburgers and French fries. French fries are skinny little potato slices. You dip them in ketchup. Sammy let out a sigh. Okay, I will try your food. Who will taste it for me? Taste it? Dink asked. Why? In my country, Sammy explained, my father's enemies sometimes try to poison him. He has a servant taste our food to make sure it is safe. Dink grinned at Sammy. My mom's a real good cook. She doesn't use much poison at all. Sammy's eyes bugged out. You are making a joke, right? Yeah, Dink said. But we have to tell her the truth about you, okay? Why? Sammy asked. Because it's the way we do things, Dink said. Don't worry. You're safe here. Nobody will get you in Green Lawn. Chapter 4. During supper, Dink and Sammy told Dink's mom the real reason why Sammy was in the United States. Oh, Sammy, Dink's mom said, I am so sorry. Thank you for telling me. After they all had some ice cream, Dink and his mother helped Sammy unpack. Dink's mother held up a long wooden box decorated with gold. This is heavy, Sammy. What's inside? She asked. Sammy opened the lid and took out a shiny kaleidoscope. Its golden sides were encrusted with jewels. This kaleidoscope has been in my family for many years, Sammy explained. It belonged to my grandfather's grandfather and his grandfather. Now it is my father's. What a lovely idea, Dink's mother said. Will the kaleidoscope belong to you someday? On my 15th birthday, my father will give this to me, Sammy said. He frowned. At least he would have, but now I don't know what will happen. Dink felt badly for Sammy. He couldn't imagine what he would feel like if his parents ever got kidnapped. Dink's mother sat on the bed next to Sammy. She took his hand. Sammy, I'm sure your parents will be found soon, she said. Didn't you tell us that your father's friends are searching every corner of your country? Sammy nodded. But his enemies are clever, he said. They may have taken my parents far away from Kostra. Dink's mother gave Sammy a hug. Then she laid his pajamas and slippers on his bed. The PJs were red silk, and the slippers were purple velvet with floppy gold tassels. Pretty snazzy, Dink said, grinning at Sammy. I usually sleep in an old t-shirt and shorts. Just then the front doorbell rang. Dink's mother left the room. Watch, Sammy said, kneeling on the floor. He unscrewed the large end of the kaleidoscope and poured out all the pieces of glass. They made a red, yellow, and blue mound on the rug. It comes apart, Dink said. He picked up some of the glass. The thin pieces felt smooth in his fingers. A knock came at the door to Sammy's room. Joan Clinker poked her head in. "Hi, Sammy," she said. Sammy smiled and scooped up the glass. "I'm showing Dink my kaleidoscope," he said. Dink helped Sammy put the kaleidoscope back in its box. "Fine, Sammy," Joan said, looking at her watch. "It's almost 8. How about a short French lesson?" She dropped a yellow book on Sammy's bed. "Will you excuse Sammy for a little while?" she said to Dink. "Can't he stay?" Sammy asked. "Dink can have a lesson with me." Joan Clinker looked at Dink for a moment, then said, "Sure, why not?" "Great," Dink said. He sat next to Sammy on the floor. Joan perched on the bed and opened the yellow book. "First, some colors," Joan said. She pointed at Dink's shirt. "Blue, but in French we say bleu. Repeat, Sammy." Sammy said bleu. To Dink, it sounded almost the same as blue. Joan pointed at Dink. "Now you, please." "Bleu," said Dink, trying to imitate Sammy. "Good." Joan put a hand on Sammy's folded pajamas. "Red," she said. "Rouge," said Jammy. To Dink, it sounded almost like rouge, so that's what he said. Joan Clinker held up the yellow book. "John," she said, "the book is yellow." She pointed at Dink. "Can you say Joan?" Dink blushed. "Joan," he finally said. "No, Joan is my name," the tutor said. Dink tried again. "Zone," he said. Sammy laughed. "That's okay," he said. "It took me a month to learn to say Joan." "Now we will do some numbers," Joan said. A half hour later, she closed the yellow book. "That's all for tonight," she said. "Tomorrow we will continue." She checked the locks on Sammy's window, his bathroom door, and the door out into the hall. Then she turned and smiled. "Bonsoir, Sammy." "Bonsoir, madame," Sammy answered. After Joan left, Dink stood up and yawned. "Night, Sammy. I'll wake you up for breakfast." Dink headed into the bathroom and brushed his teeth. He smiled at his reflection in the mirror. Tomorrow, he decided, he'd learn how to say, "My toothbrush is purple," in French.